Hey there, welcome to our AP Legal Zone podcast, brought to you by AP Lawyers. We are your top fix for all weekly law updates, including family, immigration, wills, and estates law. Just a friendly reminder, we are not your lawyers, and everything contained in this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and not to be construed as legal advice. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you can stay connected with any updates and get notified about our new episodes.
Hello, I'm Angela Princewell.
And I'm Shireen Happy. And today's topic is actually a question that was brought to us from a client. And they wanted to know, are they responsible to pay child support, or how do you deal with child support when one party is starting a business?
Yes, that's something that I have had happen a few times. I'm sure you're no stranger to it as well, Shireen. But by way, just to give some context, so it's not so much the business part or the child support obligation that's in dispute. It's just really how things could play out. So for a lot of people, starting a business means taking a pay cut. So if you're in a tech company and you're in management, for example, you're probably earning a lot of money. You might be earning, top six-figure income, and you have this fantastic, tech idea. You want to have this startup and all of that. And of course, it involves a lot of grunt work. You probably have no seed funding, nothing like that. And so you might be taking a pay cut. You might have to live on your savings. For some people, they could be going from a $500,000 income to $0 in income. Some are a little bit more fortunate. They might see themselves getting, $100,000 in the year. Regardless of what the situation is, there is either no income or a pay cut.
Or even worse, operating at a loss.
Okay, when I thought it couldn't be worse. Okay, so you see how that might be a problem for the recipient of child support. And we know that, in this scenario, we're not talking about even someone, we're going to eliminate malice, because we could go on and on if we talk about people that are doing it for, to reduce their income intentionally and whatnot. Yes. But even taking that aside, there's some people that genuinely want to start a business. And I know you were talking to me earlier about someone that wanted more control, and that's why they wanted to to start their own business. So, if you're starting your business because you want more control, or
even if it's established on a goodwill basis, your intentions are good, and hopefully it is future profitable, but it doesn't change that there is an obligation that child support needs to be paid, and there's definitely going to be considerations regarding how do you deal with that loss of income.
So obviously the recipient's lawyer, the first thing on their mind is going to be you're intentionally underemployed.
Yep.
That's thought number one. And so they're going to be looking at getting your income imputed to the same level as before you took this pay cut. And it seems straightforward enough to us as lawyers, because it's well, this is what it is. But I know for a lot of people, it's a very emotional decision, because some people I've heard comments well, I'm turning 50. I want to do my own thing. I don't want to be, I don't want to die having, worked for someone all my life.
And they see the perspective too, where we hope that that's where they end up, right? But that they're going to make a significant more money than they are now, which, is the goal.
I think that I find even an easier argument to make, where it's the potential for increased income. I think the ones I struggle a little bit more in positioning our clients' arguments is where it's more that sentiment of I have to be an entrepreneur. First off, I don't think everybody has to be an entrepreneur. I think it's fantastic. But some people have strong feelings about those things. I need to start my own. I can do it better.
Work for someone.
I can't work for someone.
Exactly.
So that's how you feel. Me personally, I don't necessarily feel that way, and the recipient may not feel that way. So when I have a client but I understand that it's the deepest desire of my client as well. For them, it's really tight. It's their identity. They want to make sure that they end their working lives having owned their own business. But how do I deal with that and the fact that you have no income to pay child support? So when the other side is saying, well, you're intentionally underemployed, if you were making, and I'm just throwing numbers all over the place, but let's say you were making $200,000 and now, you're starting your business just because you want to be your own boss, and you're going to have a lot of freedom. You're going to be able to, you can finally not have to work. Whatever your situation is, but you're going to have that pride of being a business owner. But now you're going to make $100,000. Yeah, it's a difficult, we could just tell you straight up, it's a difficult one.
It is. In terms of being the recipient on the recipient end, like, they're not going to expect obligations to change. Regardless of your own personal endeavors changing, it's not going to change, per se, their perspective on what they believe they're entitled to. There's different mechanisms that we use to also determine whether, or the code also considers if a person is in fact intentionally underemployed. I mean, for example, we've had scenarios where, people are starting businesses where they don't have the requisite expertise to be starting. So that's also not helpful to figuring out, okay, is this something that's viable? Because we also understand, like, it goes hand in hand with, maybe trying to go to school and better yourself. That maybe with a business you could, hopefully earn more income and be in a better financial position. And
I love those ones. Those arguments are actually easier for me to make. So if you have, not without experience, the lack of experience, depending on what industry it is.
Yes, but right? It has to be an industry that you have some knowledge.
Yes.
Right?
So if you're say I don't even know what industry I could pick. Honestly, I'm blank.
But let's say you have no technological idea. You're not in IT, and then you one day decide that you want to fund an IT startup. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't really correlate, and there's no
exactly. But you see, if let's say you have no IT knowledge, but you have a background in sales in IT, for example, you've been selling technology products, and now you have this great idea, and you're going to hire technical people to do all the work, and then you're going to sell it. I can make the argument that, okay, this is short-term pain for long-term gain, and everything with family law always depends on the facts, right? Yeah. So let's say a scenario where we have a 6-year-old child, and mom's the support payer here, mom's starting a business, and she has some experience that would be very valuable in the success of that business. Well, we can position it as, well, maybe she's losing money for the next couple of years until the business picks up, but look how long she's going to be paying child support for. If this short-term pain is allowed on this exception is made for this short-term period, she might even be able to fund the child's post-secondary education fully or more significantly.
And that's a factor because, again, child support's the right of the child. So in determining the child, I imagine that's a factor as well. Will it be something that's benefits the child in the long run? Obviously, each party has an obligation, or the support payer in this situation has an obligation to be self-sufficient and make sure that he's maximizing that efficiency. In terms of a business,
I don't know if I would look at it from the perspective of self-sufficiency, more like an obligation to support the child, the child to the best of their ability.
But then when you have a situation of someone earning, half of the amount they've earned just because they've started a business, they're going to obviously look at intentional underemployment and other factors, which honestly, if it comes down to a business perspective, of course, it depends on the facts, but there's ways in which I wouldn't say it's okay, but it makes sense from a court's perspective if you did start a business. If all of those things aligned, and sometimes you won't know, right? Time will tell.
Yes, but let's say your time hasn't told yet. So you're in year one. You need to be able to position your arguments in a way that it makes sense to whoever the decision maker is, to say, okay, because you are intentionally underemployed, but there's no denying that, but it's just, is it appropriate for income to be imputed to you under the circumstances? And if you're saying, well, it shouldn't be because I have the potential to double or triple my income a year or two down the road, and I have the requisite skills to do this, then that's fine. And I think it could even be helpful in a scenario where you're paying some child support, but maybe not to the
just
level.
Maybe negotiating the amount, lowering it, making it something that's viable for both the recipient and, of course, the person who's paying, so that they can, leave a little bit of cash flow. It depends, right? Like, if they're living off life savings, like, I imagine the child support ongoing is going to be a concern, while also trying to make a business thrive.
Yes. So, I mean, I know for some people it looks like, well, it's unfair. Is it because I have a child and I can't live up to my dreams or my full potential? And it may seem that way, but if you think of it, it's not unusual for even people that are together. I've met parents that would say things like, I would have pursued this if I have even something as simple as I could have done my MBA if I didn't have kids.
Didn't have to pay child support or
not even child. I'm even talking in the context of people that are still together, actually. Haven't you heard people say, I would have gone to Broadway if I didn't get pregnant and have this child. Like, children, when you have children, you make decisions differently.
And sacrifices.
Yes. So whether the family is still together in the sense of both parents, or but even more when you're separated, because now you don't even have
really flows.
Yes, flows out of that. But something else people throw to me as well is, what in a shared scenario? Well, we're 50-50, and so I don't have to pay her support. So let me set the stage for that better. So we're talking about where in a shared scenario, the payor is only paying the set-off amount. And so now their argument is, well, I shouldn't have to pay anything anymore. It's just shared. We can both take care of the child. But it might seem reasonable on the face of it, but remember that the recipient was relying on that set-off amount to provide for the child. And as I say that, I can already hear some people saying, well, he or she doesn't even use the child support for the child and blah, blah, blah. But that's a completely different topic. Actually, I think we may have done that topic before, but sticking to our focus for today, which is, do you have to still pay child support? The obligation exists regardless of what you choose to do. Shireen mentioned even school, you touched on that, like what if you went to school or whatever, your obligation still exists. Business, whatever, doesn't go away. You just have to find a way around it. I think for us, the main thing would be working to make sure that income doesn't get imputed to you, because the other side sort of has a good argument.
Yeah.
Or just sort of has I shouldn't say good argument, a basis for.
Exactly. And then just maybe figuring out different ways to explore that topic. So if that is the situation you're, going to be in, of course, like, usually business is not just something you do on a whim, I imagine. So there's usually some preparation, and then during that period of thinking, like, it would be nice to canvas with the other side, maybe negotiating the amount lower, figuring out what you can make happen, and maybe just setting it to a review, and like, maybe, well, child support's reviewable every year, but depending on maybe the terms of your agreement, maybe just having some sort of temporary hold on maybe an existing amount that you pay, so that you guys can revisit it and see, and just
that's a very good approach. Like, there's people you could even do, maybe can you suggest putting a stop to support for a period of time, and just allowing, maybe if it's 6 months or whatever, and then as arrears begin to accrue after that, and then you can pay off the arrears when the business picks up. So I like the approach you're proposing there, Shiri. You're proposing more of having a conversation with the other party.
Yeah, creative solutions, I call them.
Yes.
Yeah, and like, maybe it would be, okay, maybe you guys do ESP contributions. Maybe you guys come to an arrangement, okay, maybe I can't pay child support, or I'll pay a reduced amount, and then I'll do a lump sum in the RESP when we hope that. There's just different ways. Hopefully you get into a position where you are dealing with someone a little more open and flexible.
Yes, you don't. You may not have the choice of who the support, or of how the support recipient will behave under these circumstances. So we can only hope that you're dealing with someone that's also looking for creative solutions and willing to work amicably. Obviously, if that's not the case, and this is something that has to be dealt with a judge, then would be looking at making arguments against income being imputed to you, and it would all be based on the facts of your specific case. And there's, as we talked earlier, there's different ways that can be positioned. So that's it for today. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. And until next time, it's bye for now.
Bye. Thanks for listening and joining us in the AP Legal Zone. We hope you enjoyed this episode. You can find more episodes by searching AP Legal Zone on anywhere you watch podcasts. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast today so you can stay connected with any updates and get notified about any new episodes.